Hi, my name is Ilya Macharny, and this is my continuity of operations plan for the Renton Regional Fire Authority. This is the organization that I work for. This project was a good opportunity for me to learn a lot more about my fire department. A little bit about how I got the information for this project is I had access to our standard operating procedures on our department computers. That gave me a lot of the information that I needed. We have a document called the Standards of Cover that was published last year, and that's just a very detailed and lengthy document about the capabilities of our fire department, and that included different hazards that are unique to the Renton area. I use that for this project. And I also had the opportunity to interview our Deputy Chief of Response Operations, who was in charge of contingency planning. And he was actually in the middle of reviewing our continuity of operations plan for the department. So he had a lot of good information and accurate information for me. Oh, so a little overview of this presentation is just going to include everything that I included in my continuity of operations plan. A little bit about Renton Fire. We serve about 125,000 people in 43.3 square miles. It's 3 separate jurisdictions that combined the city of Renton and then King County Fire Districts 25 and 40. And we have a total of about 145 firefighters and 16 civilian employees, 6 fire stations, and a headquarters for the administrative staff. And we're called to about 15,000 calls for service each year. The vision for our department is to make our community safer, healthier, and stronger. And the mission statement goes with that is to work with our diverse community and respond to and recover from emergencies, reduce risk for all hazards, build a culture of safety and support for our members, and adapt to future challenges through strategic planning. So this continuity of operations plan intends to fulfill that mission even in the event of a big disaster. This plan is going to identify the mission essential functions that Renton Fire needs to maintain to fulfill our mission. And this plan just intends to help people make effective decisions and quick decisions in the event of a disaster. The purpose of this plan is to promote mitigation strategies and strengthen Renton Regional Fire Authority's resiliency after a disaster. The continuity of operations plan is here to prepare employees of Renton Fire to respond to and recover from all hazards, including major disasters, to support the mission essential functions and restore them as quickly as possible, and also to prepare employees to take care of their basic needs up to 72 hours after the disaster, and finally to coordinate a regional response to reduce the impact on our citizens. The Renton Regional Fire Authority has 4 divisions. The bulk of our work is to support the response operations, that's responding to 911 calls and mitigating emergencies. This plan applies to all personnel in Renton, and it just provides a standardized approach to managing any disaster. Different hazards that affect Renton: earthquakes, dam failure, landslides, pipeline rupture. There's a couple pipelines that run through the Renton area, petroleum and natural gas. There's a lot of buildings that store chemicals. There's a possibility for a hazmat spill. And then terrorism and shootings. There's a lot of public places in Renton that can be targeted. The different essential functions are listed here. incident response and emergency operations center operations are a high priority. Fire investigation is right under that, and logistics, training, and inspections are a lower priority but still essential functions. I use the recovery time objective and recovery point objective to prioritize those essential functions. So uh, they're listed here in this table. Incident response is our biggest priority, and that needs to be maintained immediately and restored immediately. Where inspections, they can be restored within 30 days. Concept of operations was the bulk of this plan. The executive management team, which consists of the mayor, the fire chief, the administrative director, and the heads of each department in the city of Renton. That team is responsible for implementing this continuity of operations plan. This concept of operations has 3 phases, and we're going to go over those. Activation and relocation. Like I said, this plan will be activated by the executive management team, and that team of leaders works with the emergency management department to create an overall plan for the city of Renton after a disaster. Different priorities they're going to look at from the department side is life safety of workers, property conservation, different fire stations, and the ability to perform the mission essential functions. Notifications are going to be sent out to on-duty and off-duty personnel by text message to off-duty personnel. They're going to be recalled to their fire stations, and on-duty personnel are going to be notified of the COOP implementation through pagers and station phones if that's available. The community can be notified through an emergency alert system using radios, TVs, and also a system called Reverse 911 that can actually call people and notify them of any evacuations or updates. For relocation, if a fire station is badly damaged, the crew from that fire station will move to a nearby fire station decided by the fire chief, and they're going to share one fire station is going to be shared with 2 crews for the time being, and at the same time there's going to be planning for a cold site. Basically, Renton Fire will contract with a company for an appropriate cold site location, and that site's going to be outfitted to become a temporary fire station. The orders of session are going to be are listed here. This table is organized by the different mission essential functions. Incident response, for example, the key position is the fire chief, and the session order is deputy chief of response operations, then the next deputy chief, and after that the senior battalion chief. And then listed is their responsibility of the program, how much they're able to take responsibility for, and also the condition for secession is on the very right. Phase 2, alternate facility operations. This phase describes the different things that need to be in place for an alternate facility. It identifies the mission critical systems and also the vital records that Renton Fire maintains. So when a disaster happens, a station assessment will be conducted at each fire station, and the information from the station assessments will determine the need to relocate. The different critical systems that are maintained are communications, our radio system, and that's at each station, and the backups at the Emergency Operations Center. The Emergency Operations Center is maintained at Station 12. Different engine units are at each station, ladder unit, Station 11, and then the rest are listed there. So the different vital files and records that Renton maintains are emergency operations and financial or legal ones. And all the files and records and databases that are maintained by Renton Fire are backed up onto a server, and that server is um, backed up every month onto a hard disk, and that hard disk is stored at a separate location. Reconstitution, this is the phase of getting everything back to normal, transitioning from temporary locations to a permanent site. The administrative team is responsible for this phase. That consists of the fire chief, both deputy chiefs, and the director of administration. The deputy chief of response operations will create an after action review after each incident, and that's just an opportunity for personnel to provide feedback on how the continuity of operations plan was executed and any recommendations for revision. So logistics, the requirements for an alternate site, food, water, phones, communications are important, computer and internet access, and cooking facilities. The communications that Renton uses, we contract with Valleycom. That's our dispatch center. In the event that Valleycom is overwhelmed, we can open our emergency operations center, and we have the ability to manage 911 calls from there. FirstNet is a system created by AT&T that we just started using, and it basically gives first responders and public service agencies that use it the priority on different networks. So when cell phone towers are overwhelmed, FirstNet will give our department priority on those towers. The different communication equipment that we use are radios, pagers, cell phones, and networks. These are the different resource requirements for normal operations. And each has their contingency arrangement. A few of the contingencies aren't maintained by Renton Fire, so we contract by the automatic mutual aid agreements with different agencies around us for the battalion chiefs, the water rescue unit, and hazmat unit. Everything else is maintained by the Renton Fire. Test training and exercises. So Renton Fire holds a scenario-based tabletop exercise each year, and the executive management team does that exercise, and then triennally, Renton Fire will host a discussion-based or command post or full-scale scenario. And this just gives the opportunity for members to familiarize themselves with the plan and understand their role in it. This plan will be updated annually, and that's required by state and federal law. And the Deputy Chief of Response Operations is in charge of updating this plan, and at any time he can open up this plan for review, either after an incident or after a training session. Feedback from those after action reviews will be considered in this process. And the Deputy Chief of Response Ops will also get help from administrative staff for updating different details on the plan. Different annexes at the end. Here's the authorities and references, and then different definitions. And the Annex C on the right is a station assessment report for the fire department. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening.